That's a legend right there, a bona fide legend right there, and an intelligent, seriously level on levels. So I think, yeah, this is a great fit right here. It makes all the sense in the world.
This is my guy, man. I'm a big fan of Dame, and I've always applauded his brilliance and his tenacity for business, and been watching his movement, and he's been so at the cusp of financial freedom and economic empowerment, and I just always been a big fan of his, and I told him that when I met him in Atlanta, before the pandemic. So it's great to see him, great to see Lays, and great to see all these incredible educators that are the quintessential essential workers, right? Especially now when we're going through some unprecedented blows to the educational system and our kids and everything else. So I'm glad to be here. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Chubb. Again, I think we all echo the sentiments of Dane, man. You are truly one of the most humble legends that we've all ever known. As Lays was talking about it earlier, he said it's almost scary how you were ahead of the game in the things that you were spitting, the knowledge that you were spitting. And I was watching the interview
girls want a little number, and I was like,
a couple
of
weeks ago.
Girls clock me like 9.
One of the things that you talked about was dreaming.
Little things make the boys social. It's just because I'm a star, it gives effect, but then Michael Jackson don't get sexual. It can't be that.
And so when I heard about that, saw what you did, I said, he's somebody I'm most certainly going to bring on the meetup to kind of talk to us a little bit about what inspires you so much about young people, what inspires you so much about the kings and queens of the future and things like that. And I thought it was just only fitting that, I allow you the opportunity to kind of speak to us a little bit and keep us encouraged about the work we're doing. Because as I said, we have principals all across this country. We have educators all across this country right here on this chat, and I think on this Zoom, and I think it's very important that they hear what you have to say.
What's interesting is I kind of transitioned from music into broadcasting, right? And got really heavy into radio and syndication and things of that nature. So what's interesting was I would be called to speak at certain schools, certain universities that had mass communication majors there. And then I would go to maybe some hbcus and see their mass communication programs and their curriculum. And I didn't think that the curriculum was up to date, so to speak. And then I ended up saying, well, you can't complain about things unless you're going to try to help change it. So I took on some interns from an HBCU, and I was shocked of these were seniors, and they didn't understand any of the things that we were doing. They didn't know any of the new stuff. They didn't know any of the protocols. They literally didn't know any of this stuff, and they're going to be graduating in 6 months. And then I seen the levels of how hard it is these days, and I wanted to try to help. So I've been trying to revamp some curriculums for a few different schools that want to adapt with my vision of the curriculum. But what I went through was nothing compared to what you guys have to go through on an everyday basis. And I was dealing with, a couple of interns and trying to make sure that they can leave my program and ready to tackle the world. And you guys are dealing with hundreds, of students. So I can't even imagine the pressure on that level. And so that's why it was so important, because I just feel I was so lucky when I was younger to have been inspired by some key people. And a lot of those were teachers, right? A lot of those were teachers. I named them to this day, on these particular teachers that, really pushed me in a manner that made me realize, like, wow, I wonder what would have happened if he wasn't my teacher, if she wasn't my teacher, these kinds of things. Where would I be, and what would have happened, and things of that nature. So, what you guys all do is so incredible to me. But that's what I think. The older should always help the younger. I mean, it's probably not a postulate of life, but it needs to be. It's like, it's what you're supposed to do. The apprentice should learn from the master. And somehow we've kind of fogged up that thought process.
What is that?
Knowing what you guys are doing and the connection that you all have, that you can share information, share struggles and inspire each other, I just think is incredible, man, because that's what I always wanted to do. When you get to a certain level, you say, man, I want to help what's coming up after me. The Marines got this thing that says,
do you have a certain baseball jacket?
a Marine never dies, because the new Marine comes in and represents for the Marines.
I did, but
so it doesn't make a difference. The older Marine retires, whatever happens, they're still part of this whole movement, this big fabric, and this relay race. I've run my leg of that race already, right? I've run that leg. So now I'm trying to just help some younger people that are now beginning their leg of that relay. And whatever I can do, I will try my best, to try to do it.
Well, something else that I actually might have read it, that I was also impressed by you that years ago. I mean, I'm not talking about, now, you were talking about the NCAA and how important it was for us to start to think about how they will start to find a way to funnel money back into HBCUs, since in most instances they are the recipients of some of the, yeah.
You're using nice words, but they're pillaging from HBCUs. Yeah.
There you go. And, it's funny to hear that you talked about that years ago. And now the conversation is coming back up. And
what the fuck is that?
I think a lot needs to be said about your vision for things like that. Because well before most of us even knew about it, this was something that you were talking about. So, Chuck, talk us a little bit about that. Man. What prompted you to kind of believe that it was something that needed the attention on a global level like this?
What was interesting, man, was when I was going to high school, I was playing football. And then my cousin was playing basketball. And I didn't take football seriously like that. I thought it was cool, I loved it, but I already knew I was going to be doing something different. He really wanted to play basketball, and that was his love and his dream. And then, because we were all close and I was watching things and then got into music, I had friends that were playing, and I'm going to their school, right? Me, Hot Dog, we're touring, and we're going to school to see friends that are playing sports, and they're starving. And we're, like, giving our money away. Like, hey, you don't have any money here for the books, you don't have this, here's that, here's this. And I was like, wait a second. And then when I did an article, I think in 91, I said it in that article about that the NCAA they're making billions of dollars, and their players, are starving. And that doesn't make sense. And then later on, the game industry took off, and then they had them in the game industry, and I'm like, well, people ignored me because it was 91. They're like, what is this guy talking about? But as you go further in life, and you see that the billions turn into real billions, like tens of billions, it's ridiculous. Like literally, I can imagine Dame Dash being in one of those meetings representing a couple of those players saying, we're not making no money here. I got to play how many games? And we're making nothing. You got me. You got my boy in EA Sports, and you got his likeness here and there and there, and the merch is billions of dollars. And it's really unfair. I mean, it's an unfair situation, and I'm glad that the conversation has somewhat transformed. I think probably still has another 4 or 5 years to go, but and it's us that's being taken advantage of, right? And, African American athletes that are being taken advantage of, and it's terrible, man. man. And I got friends that have retired from basketball, and when they have retired from basketball, they have long-lasting, injuries and things, back pain, and for the rest of their lives. And it's an unfair practice. But I was a small little hip hop cat from Brooklyn, so it didn't get the attention that it should have. But I think that now bigger voices are screaming that, and it's trying to get some momentum.
Well, definitely 30 years ago you mentioned it, and again, it's taken this long to get the kind of attention that's needed. And so, I've always been a fan of your work, not only in the music industry, but also outside of the music industry, which I think I've been most impressed with, because the issues that you tackle are real ones in our community, where when we talk about equity, you most certainly are a person who's been talking about that for well over 2 centuries. 2 decades with people. And as you said, maybe you thought that they didn't hear your voice, or maybe it was something that you said. Maybe somebody did hear your voice 30 years ago and say, you know what, when it's time, I'll make sure to mention it. Unfortunately, they didn't mention your name as one of the few people that talked about it early. But nonetheless, I know just in the things that I've heard and read about you that this was something that you felt so passionate about. So shout out to you, man. I got a couple of principals out here that want to ask you a few questions, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Hey, Q, come on up, Q.
Well,
And then Dr. Rock, do your thing.
Before Q comes up, welcome everybody to the Thursday meetup. As always, if you want to make sure that you know about all things OSG, Smitty will put it to the chat to make sure that you can stay up on it. We would like to welcome all new faces. Right there in the chat, please click the link. If you have a question for the famous Chubb Rock, the legendary Chubb Rock, there is a hand raise feature at the bottom where it says reactions. Click on the reactions and you see raise hand and you'll get into the lineup. So with that being said, please make sure you sign up. And Mohammed, you are up. You can ask a question. And if you want to see who's on the stage, just go to your speaker view, everyone. Thank you.
Peace, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome. Chubb, it's good to see you, man. Clearly you just dropped a God jewel about the apprentice seeking information from the master. The last time I saw you, you delivered an amazing eulogy to a good friend that we share, Andre Kyles. And that was the last time I saw you. But even when I was transitioning and trying to make my way in the industry and trying to figure out, if I wanted to be the educator that I ultimately became, I always had access to you because he always found you. He would have me meet on 3rd Street, and I'm coming from Jersey, but you always had something powerful to say, and clearly, as Dennis just said, it may have taken 30 years, but I'm glad that I had access to that circle, and I don't know, that may have been 20 years ago, because it was a very pivotal time for a lot of us who had access to both worlds. And my thing is, I may find, I may find a better way doing the work that I'm doing now, even as a school principal, trying to reach, students who may ultimately become entertainers if they want. But you always had jewels even back then, and I appreciate it. Having access to you then, and even, this is a pleasant surprise today. But again, the last time we saw each other, it was a sad moment. But even then, you left us at that services, with an amazing jewel about living and ultimately dying. So, but thank you, man, and keep up the good work.
I appreciate it. Yeah, Andre was a special guy. He was Mr. Music, especially when it came to record promotion and radio promotion and things of that nature. So yeah, he was a good friend of mine for a long time, so I appreciate that.
No, thank you, beloved.
Thanks, Chubb.
Thank you, Muhammad. Big brother Lace has his hands up. Oh, that's a first, brother. Just want to mess with you.
First of all, I want to be respectful to the brother Chubb because, I think that he fits right into what we're talking about. We've been talking about the situation with the NCAA, especially with what's happening. You can look at places like Alabama and the HBCU down the road where they're getting billions of dollars in television contracts, and they're luring away the talent from the HBCU. We're talking about if they were funded properly, then maybe some of the HBCUs could actually draw the talent and get the contracts, but they're just coming in and just pulling out all the talent and taking it over to the big schools. So you're spot on. And also your broadcasting comment, as a matter of fact, we're in schools now doing broadcasting 101, 1, 2, and 3 for 3rd and 4th graders. And I would love for you to be a part of that, brother. I don't know if you're connected with the DOE, but we're in a bunch of schools doing that now. We're building broadcast rooms, so I would love to have your input on stuff like that, because trust me, if you can get inside, and a brother like you teaching that, where we can teach things like public speaking and just confidence that we have for our young children, we can make a lot of big changes in our community. So I just want to stop and say I'm really proud of you and your insight, and I definitely let you know that it's welcome in this group. So please come on in, brother. The water's warm over there.
Oh, definitely. I'll give you my number, or Dennis will give it to you. And I love that stuff, man. I think it's very important. And, it's like I call a bunch of people that are experts in that field MTTs, right? They're not like the principals on their Zoom call. These are what I guess I would call non-traditional teachers, right? So, straight experience, experience-based. But I welcome it all. So definitely we'll keep in touch about what's going on the communication level.
Absolutely, brother. Please.
Thanks, Chubb. Thanks, Lace.
Thanks, Lace. And for those of you who are wondering who's speaking, I'm Dr. Action. That's my name in OSG land. But in the real world, my name is Dr. Anissa Riley. And the next person up, sir, is Jason Rivers.
Jay Riv, all the way from where? Where you at, Jay? We know that ain't your backyard. Where you at, Jay?
I'm in the Bahamas, man.
The Bahamas.
Jason Rivers taking it down. You taking it down right now.
I had to get my 2 weeks in before we get back in that building. So, I had to jump on OSG. The pool is right there. As soon as I'm done, I'm hopping in the pool after I smoke my steak. But, I'll just tell you, you said something that was like, you said you were a minute sort of in the hip hop. Nah, bro, you're a hip hop legend. You're a hip hop legend. So I know you humble with that. But what I wanted to know is, like, can you expand a little bit on what you've been doing with the HBCUs?
Yeah. See, so I created. Well, it first started when I wanted to have like an ode to hip hop, and I didn't believe that urban ACs were playing classic hip hop on the radio stations. And this journey might have started.
You want to keep it going?
I don't know, maybe 2009, 10. They didn't believe urban ACs should play classic hip hop. You could play Luther Vandross, you could play Anita Baker, you could play Cameo, and all of these are great artists, great music, but you wouldn't play Naughty by Nature, you wouldn't play MC Light and things of that nature. So when I had the opportunity, I had a conversation at WBLS, which was the birthplace of hip hop in New York, Frankie Crocker and Mr. Magic and everything else. And I'm like, can I do a show here? And they said, oh yeah, Chubb, you can come and do what we're doing. And I said, I don't want to do that. I need to inject classic hip hop into this format. Oh, Chubb, we don't really play classic hip hop during the day. That's usually a DJ thing on the weekend. I said, I don't understand. I mean, it's classic music, it's great music, it's feel-good music, and it's down the same lane as any other record that came out in the 90s or the 80s, so what would be the difference? So, everything is about showing improving, right? So I asked him, I said, listen, give me 4 weeks. PPM now, you get an understanding if it's winning or failing in 4 weeks. It isn't like the diary world of the 80s and 90s. Everything is PPM, which just stands for people meters. It looks like a beeper. People wear it. They can tell, the rating system can tell what you're listening to, how long you're listening, to it for. And I said, hey, if I'm not doing well, take me off. It's not a big deal. And he said, fine. And of course it worked. It overly worked. And we started that journey, and then I wanted to syndicate that show, and but I didn't want to syndicate it and be owned by somebody, be owned by iHeart. So I wanted more of an independent thing and own my own syndication. So Dane Dash could be proud of me. And when I'm yelling at me, Chubb, what you want to do? I didn't want that kind of vibe. So it was a longer road because it was more independent. And then now we're syndicated in 40 markets with that show. And then we're doing the morning show now. And that's in 15 cities. And then it was Yale who wanted me to speak there and check out what they were doing. And of course it was incredible. I mean, they're Yale, they got money for days, and presidents have gone there and things of that nature. But then I went to an hbcu. They didn't have the same resources. And then a couple of HBCUs reached out to me and said, Chubb, we got some interns. We need some interns to work with you. I said, bring them on. And we did that. And I had a conversation. I said, you guys are graduating in a few months. You should know everything. And I'm naming things, and they're saying, we've never done that. What about this? We've never done that. But what about this? We've never done that. Okay, so we got to start from the beginning, and you're graduating in 6 months. So we had somewhat of a serious task on the hands, and we took it on, and they caught it like a sponge. Boom. We were good. In fact, I had 2 of them actually running my show, running the boards, handling commercials, dealing with stop sets and everything else. So, and that's when one of the schools approached me and said, is there a way that we can interject with what you're doing? And I said, I'm not so sure if you can interject with what I'm doing, but I would try to help revamp the curriculum somewhat, and I gave them my ideas of it, and they seem to like it, and we'll see what happens, as we go forward. With God's blessing, we'll see what we can do. So that's my introduction into the HBCU mass communication part of it, and hopefully, it will trickle on to the other schools and things of that nature.
Well, Jay, before you go, Chubb, Jason, myself, and several other educators are doing some work down in Delaware State to really promote more educators of color, especially men, to actually see us the way we are, right? So I think there's this perception of educating like reactive things. So as you can scan this room here, you can clearly see that we're a different breed, right? We're not the typical educator, we're not the typical school leader, we're not the typical entertainers here. Like, we are truly people who are unapologetic with ourselves. And so Jason reached out to me a few weeks ago, and he and I and several other educators getting ready to do some big things down in Delaware State. So it's our hope that I'll reach out to you, and maybe you can kind of join forces with us as we go out there and try to make a difference and bring some of these young people towards this amazing calling called education. So
yeah, Dennis, you already know my wheels are turning. As soon as I get on, you already know. They'll stay up. My people like, yo, Chubb Rock, we need to get him there. So you already know, Dennis.
That's why I said it.
I know you did. I'm always like, I'm about to jump off this and about to hit Del State people up like, Chubb Rock is the man. We need to bring him to Del State. Let's go.
So imagine that, Chubb Rock, Dane Dash, OSG running up in Delaware State. It's gonna be a little
Game
They're a bit crazy.
OSG, we coming through. We about to hit the HBCUs hard.
Absolutely. All right, Jay, man, enjoy
I'm
your
here.
vacation. Enjoy your
Enjoy that swimming pool there, man, in the
Yeah,
Louvre.
I'm about to exit out. You know, I came
man,
on
Jay.
real quick, and I didn't know Chubb was gonna be on, so that's why I heard Chubb Rock. I'm like, yeah, I'm about to stay on this. Now I'm about to head to the
Absolutely. Thank you, Jay. And again, that's the thing. That's what's the beauty of OSG. I never announced in advance who's coming through, and so when people come through and spend time with us, it's genuine. And so, Jay, you know, it's just a treat. It's just a treat for people coming through when you get people like Chubb Rock coming through. So go ahead, man, and enjoy that smoke, man. Enjoy your wife. Happy anniversary, man. Just see you when you get back to New York.
Yes, sir. Y'all be blessed, man. Y'all stay safe.
Stay well, sir.
All right, brothers, sisters, everybody. Sorry, about to get going. Goodbye, OSG.
All right, Jay. What we got, Dr. Action? We got
Yes.
a couple more questions for you, Chubb. Is that all right?
Oh, of course, man, no problem.
All right.
So yes, we have 2 more questions. We have Liza or Liza. I'm sorry if I pronounced it wrong.
Lisa?
Lisa, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with OSG. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
It's a pleasure to be here. Great to see everyone. I just wanted to give kudos to Mr. Chubb Rock for bringing up the NCAA situation. I'm a former Division I scholarship athlete who attended a predominantly white university, specifically the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And everything that he said I can attest to is long overdue. We were having these conversations, like he said, 30 plus years ago. I'm class of 89 out of Carolina. And as a student athlete at the time, although we were having a conversation, because the university was paying for our education, we could not articulate what we were experiencing and what our needs were because we were in fear of losing our scholarships. So I just wanted to say thank you for what you have done, the articles, the information. Although it has been delayed, it is not being denied. They use us and they dangle the carrot and they say, you know, we're offering you free school, but in actuality, nothing's free, and there has been a cost that comes with student athletes who earn athletic scholarships, especially to the predominantly white universities. So thank you very much, and I just wanted to applaud you because in your conversation, you identified my experience. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you, and thank you very much.
And Lisa, before you go, come on, talk to us. Tell us where you from. Like, we holla at us. Give us a little background.
So I'm from Newark, New Jersey, born and raised. I learned about OSG through my little sister, Lynetta Sullivan, and also through Akbar Cook. We both work in Newark for Newark Public School System. Like I said, I'm born and raised in Newark. I attended the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill on a basketball scholarship. After graduating from UNC, I played for the Washington Mystics in the WNBA. Like most of us on this call today, I was inspired. I see your hand, Phil. I was inspired by my teachers. And so because they inspired me so much, it made me want to give back. And I wanted to give back in my own community. And so I ended up back at home, you know, from where I was born and raised. And I've been here for over 30 plus years. I can actually retire next year. Don't plan to do so, but it feels good to be in that space. And I'm just blessed to be an educator. I'm very blessed to have stumbled upon this group. I'm appreciative. I'm looking to learn more and connect with so many educators of color in the tri-state area, and I'm just really excited. My connection to music is I'm actually a DJ as well. You had a young lady on earlier. Her name was Sassy. My name is DJ Sassy. It's spelled the same way. But I'm excited, and I think that education and music, well, the art period play a big role in education. They try to play it down in the school, but everybody on this line knows as well as I do that the arts are important, and And for anybody that's learning, but especially students of color, it's where we really grow and it's where we shine. So, thank you again. And, Mr. Dennis, I'm going to be reaching out about that dissertation. Mr. Chubb Rock hit right on the head with my dissertation. So I'm glad I was here today. I'm glad I jumped on today.
Absolutely, Lisa. It was great. It was great seeing you again. And what's important for you to know is that you have a family now that you don't have to ask twice about something that you need. And so, Chubb, I think was important to discuss here is that, again, the importance of knowing that we have brothers and sisters all across this country that's on this line, and knowing that if you're a principal in Harlem, if you're an educator in Newark, you got brothers and sisters all over that can help support the work that you're doing. So what makes this so unique is something that, I laughed about when I heard you mention something, Chubb, about how important the record label that you all were originally from, independent record label where you and MOP and Kid and Play and everybody was on, and you said that you guys were probably the most powerful independent record label of its time. I think of Select Records, I think of OSG in the same way, and say, look, it's very rare that you get this kind of talent, this kind of passion all in one room, all for one cause, which is our young people. So, Lisa, again, you already know. We've talked in the past about it, and so you just stay close to us. Our doors are open every Thursday, and so feel free to come on through. But Chubb, definitely this is a special place, and I'm glad that you were able to share in this with us. I think we got a couple more people that want to ask you some stuff, but I definitely thought about what you said with your record label and say, wow, this is what Chubb was talking about. From different places, different mindset, but you all came together and formed one of the greatest independent labels that there was. So congratulations to you, bro.
Yeah, I'm speaking to Fred Manel. I speak to him pretty often, actually. And the only mistake that we ever made as a label was being enticed. Well, he was enticed to then have the label being distributed by Warner Brothers. Everything was incredible when we were independent. We could maneuver better, we were a little more agile. The minute you try to plug into that system,
So is it safe to say, Chubb, is it safe to say the same thing that you talked about with the NCAA?
Oh, without question. Because at that point now, you're dealing with schedules, you're dealing with stockholders, you're dealing with, people that never wanted you in the building. When I was trying to, my whole record was funded by my mother. A little Jamaican woman from Jamaica, and my father didn't even know what a rap record was. Everything that he played was Dennis Brown and Gregory Isaacs and Bob. Go to my father and be like, yo, Dad, I'm doing this rap record. He was, yeah, top boat my way. Well, this was what was going on. So, but she funded it. Like, Joanne, I need this. And she was like, I don't like you coming home from whatever this studio is. It's too late. We're gonna put it in the basement. We're gonna do this. And because when I made my first record, I was 16. I didn't even sign my record contract. My mother did. So it was a very different thing because now you had this Jamaican woman in there, and they're telling her, "Oh, well, this is what all the deals are." And she's like, "Yeah, but why do I need you? Like I already paid for this record for him, and why do I need you now?" And then they had to go and break it all down to her, and but it garnered a certain amount of respect, right? So it's just, again, I think that was the only. Even Fred had to admit it to me. The minute he went with Warner Brothers, everything was horrible. Horrible. So, being independent is always a better scenario. It's just what it is. So with NCAA, we talking to the sister who played ball and everything else. I just feel like each entity of those players, no matter what the sport is like the Matrix. Each of them are plugged into this system that is all make-believe here. And the make-believe part is they're almost told, like, there's no real money being made here. Oh, there's nothing to see here. But it's billions and billions of dollars. So, but we live and we learn. So, and I didn't want to keep the sister waiting. I think she's next. Is it Fia Davis? Fia with the Kango on.
Okay, hold up. Chubb, you gonna come on the first day of OSG and moderate? That's what we doing? I'm here for it. Okay, I like it. No, don't apologize. First of all, salute to you, legend of hip hop. I appreciate your humility, but we are excited to have you here. I am Pia Davis, as you already introduced me. Thank you. I serve as Deputy Superintendent in the Bronx. BX stand up. I'm accountable for half of 33,000 children. And I have two things I want to say to you. First, I love the idea when you spoke about independence. And you said when we were independent, it was better. And so just this idea as educators and as leaders, you know, Dame has taught us, Dennis has taught us about really being independent and figuring out your own brand and standing up for yourself. So just thank you for reiterating that point. The question I have for you is, as you speak, you sound like an educator to me. And so for you, from your perspective as a parent, and your experience as an artist, as a celebrity, what parallels do you see between what you do and what we do as educators?
What we do can never compare to what you all do. They can never do it. To deal with so many personalities that have, each of them have different stories, each have different needs, each have different talents, each may have different shortcomings, and to navigate that and to juggle that kind of thing, it's unimaginable. What we do, we're there to entertain for the most part. You guys, so you can be mentally stable enough to do that, I think, is the only part we play in this. Because what you guys do is remarkable. You know, teachers, educators. You know, I think at the age that we are now is when we can try to mimic you guys and do our part. Because yes, we might have somewhat of a different way of communicating with young people, right? We might have a different way to communicate with them. We might have a different way to get them to trust us, because I know that's a big thing with teachers and students. Trust has to be a big part of that. And maybe we have that in certain times when you get to a certain time in your life. Because who wouldn't want to learn in a school from a Dame Dash? You know, when you think about, you know, you got people that think about Henry Ford. You say, wow, Henry Ford, Motor Company. That's the way I feel when I say, wow, Dame Dash, Rockefeller Records, Rockaware Records. You know, I think about that stuff because. So I think learning from these kinds of people in the music business that have gotten to a certain part in their career will always be good. You know, to learn from a Curtis Blow, to learn from a Melly Mel, you know, to learn from these minds, I think will be incredible. You know what's interesting? I wish that we had more access to schools and more access to you guys, because then we would learn certain things that I think that we still need to learn. Right? There's still a problem. And I was speaking to one of my co-hosts yesterday about this. And I don't know if Dame is still on or not, but you know,
I'm right here.
I might speak on here another Thursday and bother you guys about this, but
Please do.
in the music
You are
business,
welcome. Please do.
we have a situation that someone needs to explain to me. And what they need to explain to me is, how do our black labels, music labels, close without any musical failures? Like, I don't understand it. Like, Bad Boy Records is no longer. But there was no failure. They had Biggie, they had Craig Mack, they had...
Hey, Chubb, I can tell you that one.
Well,
I can tell you that one.
but that label is gone, but there was no failures. Death Row Records is gone, but there was no failures. LaFace Records is gone, but there was no failures. You know, Luke Skywalker Records is gone, but there was no failures. Right? All these black labels are gone with no failures. It's one thing if you had a bunch of records that didn't hit and, you know. But why are our labels gone with no failures? So Death, gone, no failures. I can keep going on. So
I can tell you real quick. I can tell you real quick. It's because after they buy us at a multiple, they fire everybody. And, you know, once you don't control it or own it anymore, you move on once you get the check. That's what happens once they buy it. Because I you know, and then also they divide the DNA and the fabric and the what actually made. So there was no LA or you know, LaFace and all that because they split up LA Reid and Babyface. You know what my situation was. You know what Russell's situation was. That check always divides us. That check always divides us. That's what always happens. It's not always, you know, not everyone has the equal division thing, but it takes one to divide two. I mean, to divide one, it takes one. Period. You know? And that's what they do. They tempt one that's insecure, and then he sells that whole culture out. They pat them on the back, and then your lineage and the narrative of what you did then gets shelved. And that's what happens. And that's the reason why, like you said, it makes sense to be independent. And as it relates to, you know, teaching in the schools, the only way, like when you watch a sport, you can see how fast a professional moves. When you hear about business at a professional level, you don't see the business. So you don't know how quick it moves. So I went over to Principal Ra's school today. And by the way, it's different when you see the students in the school. Principal Ra provides a country club experience for his students. I was so impressed and it felt good. It was like I wanted to go there to hang out. But I was going there to tell his students, I'm making a movie. If you want to learn about making movies, if you want to see what it takes to make a movie, you can work on the set with me. And when you finish, you will know how to make your own movie. And it seems like that's the way you taught, you know, where you realized where there was weaknesses and voids with the interns by teaching them at a professional level. But once you show them, they could do it. But it doesn't seem like they're teaching us things at a professional level at an intentional rate. But, you know, with this voice and this platform and the access that you're looking for, OSG does give us that access. And that's why I'm here. Everything that you've said, you see, they're not like defending education. They're embracing it. And they're saying, show us how to fix it. Let me bring you to our school to fix it. Everyone on OSG wants to change. They want things to change, and they're not leaving it to the board to do it. They're going to make it happen. And, you know, I call them, you know, my wife coined them CEOs, Chief Educational Officers, that run budgets and businesses and a lot of kids and our future. But they're all here for it. And Rob was fresher than all the students, too. It was crazy.
Hey, Dame, that's dope because, you know, Thea talked, Chubb, what Thea was talking about when she was talking about how does it parallel, I think, you know, taking a little bit from her and Dr. Malik's show is education and entertainment can actually complement one another, right? So it's important to understand that none of it stands alone, nor does it have to stand alone. And so when you're talking about reaching young people, I mean, in this room, you have a bunch of people who have a bunch of young people, right? So it's imperative to know that the thing that you look to do, we actually have the access that you're looking for. So it is important, Chubb, that, you know, you do jump on in every Thursday or whenever you can to kind of see, because this is who we are all the time. But we most certainly want to make an impact on our students. We want to make an impact in our communities. We want to make an impact in this world. And with people like yourself and Jane and other people who are so passionate about the work that we do, listen, it's going to be very difficult to stop us. So I definitely thought that what Thea said was so powerful. But keep it in mind, what we're really asking, to get parallel now, let's complement one another. Let's work collectively to make that stuff happen.
I
love how you're plugging our show, Dennis. I just want to say thank you for that.
There you go.
Complimentary Conversations, the vodcast with Mia Davis and Dr. Malik Andrew Small. I believe Malik's hand may be up next, but I don't want to do Dr. Riley's job.
And we got an episode to show you too if you want to see it at some point.
Appreciate you.
Dennis, I like
your voice.
Dennis, I like where you're going because Dennis and I have been talking about this particular subject for a long time. Dame has been talking about this subject for a long time. And I think it's great that Chubb is here today because he actually has the experiences. Like I have 30 years, we've been sort of in this same bubble. We've watched all these things go down. And one of the things I think the mistakes that we make as a community is that we're a little bit loud about our process. I think what OSG is doing, we're keeping our process to ourselves and we're championing our victories. I think that's something that we have to continue to do. And if we can find a way that we can continue, because a lot of work that OSG is doing, we don't even talk about it on the meetup. So I would love to have Chubb join us on our Tuesday meeting and some of our other meetings where he can actually get involved in what we're doing, how we're coalescing in ways that can actually change the community. And I invite other people too that like-minded that want to get down with us because we are making some very powerful moves, especially the way we're combining education and entertainment, which was the entire goal in the beginning, was to show how, like, if you could bring the education, these guys are all doctors, Chubb. These guys, like, they all have doctorates, you know what I'm saying? So this is the cream of the crop on this Zoom meeting right here. You know, with all due respect to the teachers and the APs, this is the cream of the crop right here. This is the next generation. So I hope that you can stick with us, even not just on Thursday, but there are other meetings where we're putting things in action that we'd love for you to be a part of.
Oh, yeah, I really appreciate it. I appreciate it.
And Chubb, so before I get to the next person, you know, I was remember part of the interview that you talked about when you opened up for NWA, and I think it was in Ohio, and you had mentioned when you came back to Brooklyn, you were telling everybody about this dope group who's dressed all in black, right? And it wasn't about East Coast, West Coast, or nothing like that. You saw talent. You saw these dudes out here really spitting something that was special, and you came back and talked about it. And I think that stuff is important too, to be spoken about, is that when you see great things, you speak about great things. And what you saw in NWA when they were fairly new, and you were opening up for them, and what you came back and said was so powerful. And then it's my hope that when you really take an opportunity to sit back and think about what's in this room with you, that you can think about us in the very same way, that there is a group of people out here that are passionate about this work, and people that are passionate about making a change. We are not going to make excuses about why we didn't change this thing 20 years from now. So I just, you know, as we were talking, I just keep thinking about what you said about when you first got a chance to meet NWA and to open up for them and things like that.
Yeah. You know, as far as I was concerned, it was mind-blowing to see, you know, I think maybe 3,000 people going crazy and knowing every word, and I didn't even know them. You know, I had no clue who they were. And the person that spoke to me was, that spoke to me first, I should say, was Easy, you know, and we got a chance to really talk, and he was so honest about who he was, you know, the fact that he was literally just kind of making it up as he went along, but he had Dr. Dre and Ice Cube and DOC writing lyrics and all this other kind of stuff, and even though at the time, me being there, not really understanding how this ever came to be, they showed how, you know, you can get the message out without radio, because they were not getting any radio, and yet sold 2 million records or whatever it was. So it showed that it almost sounded, in a strange way, it almost felt like self-gentrification. Like, hey man, we're gonna, you know, make our neighborhood better by ourselves. You know, we're not gonna have to bring in this and this and this. We're gonna do it on our own. So I've always just been a fan of how that went about. out. And then, of course, me and Ice Cube became friends because once he went solo, we were on tour for quite some years. And but it's a great experience.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that, Chuck. Very inspirational. Dr. Action? Before Chuck does your job again?
It's okay. I bow to the legend. You can moderate anytime, sir. I can tell people, Chuck Rock took my job. With that being said, I'd like to bring the other half of Complimentary Conversations up to the stage, Dr. Malik Small.
I hope you're not going to bring me up without my other half. Where's Fia? Hello, everybody.
She's
welcome
there.
to the,
I'm right here. I'm right here. Hey, brother.
Welcome. I'm so happy to be here. Chubb Rock, I remember seeing you perform as an adult at the Prince Hall Grand Lodge in Harlem some time ago. That was fantastic. But what I wanted to say, number one, like Nas said, we gotta give people their flowers while they're here. So I want to give you your flowers, and I want to say to you, number one, if you look at us in this room, you can kind of get a sense of our age range. You and your colleagues and were our first teachers, right? We are children of hip hop. Run DMC changed my life when I saw them on MTV when I was about 6, 7, right? All of you were our first teachers outside of our parents, outside of a couple of good teachers. I happen to always have good teachers because my father handpicked all of my teachers. He kind of deboed the whole situation. But outside of that, hip hop was our first teacher. I'm from Harlem, right? I was born in the Bronx. So I want to say thank you and say you are a teacher, just like KRS-One, just like, Big Daddy Kane and the rest of you guys. You taught us so much. You taught us what style was. You taught us what swag was. You taught us what it meant to be independent. You taught us what it meant to go against the grain, because you guys were revolutionaries at that time period. You changed the world, and I don't know if somebody wrote a book on it yet, but there has to be a sociological study on the impact of hip hop on the black community, on the world at large, because the world would not be the same without hip hop, without Chubb Rock, without Biz Markie, without Naughty by Nature, without just so many names that without DMX, without, we can say names over and over. And then also to look at hip hop grow up and look at when we can look at those same young people when they were young, yourself and so forth and so on, and now see that they are your family men and parents and so forth and so on. So the lessons that hip-hop has taught us and that continues to teach us has shaped who we are as principals and superintendents and teachers. And I just think it's so important to recognize the role that you played and your colleagues and contemporaries played in creating us and making us the fearless educators that we are. So I'm going to say thank you, and I want to give you those flowers.
I really appreciate it. It's interesting to get these comments. When I think about legends and I think about icons of hip hop, I get visions of Melly Mel and Curtis Blow, and those are people that come into my mind. When you hear the words legend and icon, to me it's Curtis Blow. That's Mr. Hip Hop to me, and Melly Mel and Scorpio and Houdini and them cats. That's what comes into my brain. Jalil Hutchins and the great Ecstasy in Heaven. But I really appreciate all the just all the kind words. And it's interesting. I don't know if you guys remember this. I don't even know if you guys were part of this back in the 90s, man. But back in the 90s, and I hate to say this because it was always at these Ivy League schools, right? It was always at Yale. It was always at Harvard. They would have these forums there, the state of hip hop. That's what they would have there, the state of hip hop. How is hip hop influencing young people? And somehow they stopped it. Like I would say 97, 98, it all went away. So there was a disconnect, I think, sometimes with it isn't to criticize young people and whatever they want to do, but it was a different hip hop. It wasn't about knowledge of self and about certain things. It wasn't even about lyrics per se. You know, it was more of a different thing. You know, just a very different thing. And I think that.
Well, look at this generation here and correlate that to your generation. We're the children of that conscious hip hop. We're the children of when hip hop was fun, right? And then you can look at the change and see, and it was intentional. And we're not. That's a whole different conversation for another time. You can look and see when hip hop changed, and you can look squarely at the effect that had on that next generation, right? And so again, they probably stopped the conversation because they realized that brothers like you and your contemporaries, when the music was that good music, was producing people like us that you see sitting here in the room with you, right? But there is a strong correlation, right? We listen to you, right? We listen to Kid and Play, but not just listen to Kid and Play. We saw Kid and Play was all about black people going to college and so forth and so on. And you can look and see when that music changed at the same time that the music and hip hop was intentionally changed by way of what would be distributed, et cetera, and you look at the intentionality of how drugs at the same time were brought into the community and the intentionality of around redlining and all these other things. You put it in a big pot and they got what they wanted to get. A prison full of black people and graveyards full of people ODing on crack, right? But we the babies of that good hip hop music, and so thank you. And I'm glad it's coming.
And I hope that's what is you know, I hope that seed is being planted even here in this conversation, because you guys now are dealing with educating the next generation, and I don't even know what that next generation is going to be. You know, I still haven't. You guys would have to tell me what that is. You had the Generation X, you know, like you said, and you had knowledge of self. You had Rakim and things of that nature. And then you went to another generation that came, you know, like when I was going, and Kid and Play and Tribe. And then you had the next generation of Biggie and Pac. And then you went into Nelly and T.I. and things of that nature. But then you got this generation going on now. You know, and it's very scary to me because my first break on my radio show, my very first break, is to usually acknowledge someone that has passed away. And I always wanted to be someone that's in their 80s, right? Somebody that is 85, 89, 90, you know, things of that nature. You know, Bookman from Good Times that passed away 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago at 91. That's what you want to hear. But after a while, man, I had to stop. I had to catch myself, because every day I was talking about a new rapper that was killed. Like every day. One day, when you guys get off this call, Google how many rappers have been killed in 2020. And when you see that number, you're gonna be floored. And the age that they were when they were killed. And it's happening now like crazy since the beginning of this year. I had to stop myself and say, wait a second, Rich, you can't start the show like this every day. I'm talking 17-year-olds, 26, 23, 22, 19 rappers, you know, with all these different names. Such and such from Philly, such and such from Chicago, such and such from Atlanta. And I'm sitting there going, okay, how did hip-hop, like, you know, hip-hop started, if you go into the 70s, it was braggadocious music, Sugar Hill Gang, right? And then later on, it was Stick-Up Kids, Look What They Done Did, you know, Melly Mel, The Message. Later on, we got into Rakim. This is for thousands of people who came, a show from row to row, and I'll entertain. You know, that Rakim knowledge of self-poetry. Then it's Slick Rick. You know, crack era. Dave the Dope Fiend shooting dope. You know what I'm saying? And you kept going, kept going.
Eating the water or soap.
Then there you go. Then you kept going. now it's actually death music now. It's death music. Like people are dying. Dying. I'm like, wait a second, where did this kid come from? And now he's dead 2 weeks later. Where did this guy come from? Okay, cool. Dead again. This one, dead again. You guys talked about, I think the Queen talked about the brilliance of Nipsey Hussle.
So how do you reconcile the fact that hip hop was born out of a need to give voice, to give life to our people, and now has been misappropriated and taken and used as a weapon to actually end life, right? How do you reconcile that?
I mean, it's like somehow we have gotten to the point with our young people that, I remember at some point, it's like death is some kind of new marketing tool, right? It's a marketing tool all of a sudden. At one point, hip-hop adopted this keep it real type of thing. Oh, I went to jail. I'm real. I got street credibility because I got shot and lived. So is the new marketing thing, I got to die now? Or I got to be charged with murder? I don't know.
Well, let me say real quick.
Chubb, if I may, as educators, our job, and I asked you this question about parallels intentionally, because as educators, our job is to figure out how to get them to hear us, right? It is our job to figure out how to get them to hear us. And so when you hear people talk about OSG is fly and match my fly, our job is to make this look good so that we can reach young people, connect with them, speak into their hearts first so that we might get their righteous minds. And so when I think about you and you say young rappers are dying and being killed, what is the responsibility, or how do you as an elder of hip hop get them to hear you and touch their hearts so they might consider moving differently, guarding their conflict, being thoughtful about the company they keep?
There's a real definitive answer for some of it, right?
Okay.
Some of it. I didn't agree with certain, if you want to use legends of hip hop, I don't know if you want to use that, it's not my kind of word, but of course they would take hip hop personally. So if you're going to tarnish hip hop, they're going to take it personal. And so maybe criticism came, right? But criticism without direction is just criticism, right? So to criticize, so criticizing young rappers cannot be the way. It will never be the way, right? So when I see them in the airport, they don't know me. They have no clue about me. It's their road manager or their manager that knows me. Oh, they go, Chuck. Who? Oh, man, that's for my time. Now, it's up to him or her to now give them a very abridged version of me. Or even play it. I see them do it in front of me. Put it on YouTube, play it. Treat right. Oh, yeah. Look at Lil Wayne and Mary J. Blige. No. They got it from him. You got to go through that step. But at the same time, they don't know me. Just like they don't know none of these other guys. They don't know them. Right? So how you approach them has to be with mutual respect. You got to respect them. There can't be criticism. Oh, man, my era was this. Oh, we did this. It has to be with love, too. Like, hey, man, I want you to do better than me. And I did okay. I want you to go and visit everywhere on the globe. I want you to experience that. I want you to have fun with your friends. I want you to save money for your future. I want you to win. And then hope, if they see that it's genuine, that they can say, yo, OG, man, these guys are getting on Instagram and they're talking a lot of junk and I don't know how to handle that. Come on, bro. You don't need to go through all of that. Make your music, travel, do your business, watch your circle, Watch who's around you. You understand? What's going on with your mom and your dad? Oh, I don't speak to them no more. No. Try to fix that. You know, but if and then it can't be with fair reason. Because an adult that is scared of a child, that ain't gonna work. Right? So you can't be afraid. Right? So you gotta be able. So it's a complicated answer, but there are answers to it. Right? There are answers to it. And then at some point, even with you guys, there has to be something that they are gonna love. Right? Fine. Of course, you got to teach the basics in social studies and math, science, blah, blah, history. But they took music out of school for the most part. Taking music out of school. From what I can see, in certain schools, they've taken out drama, drama class, and, all these other kind of things. So, there is a disconnect with old school, and I wouldn't even call it new school, but there's a disconnect between old school, new school, and there's a disconnect between new school and mid school. Because I see some of the new guys that don't even respect Lil Wayne. So he's middle school, If we're old school, there's new school, he's middle school, and there's a disconnect even between them. So somehow, us in that business, we have created, with criticism, this divide. So why in the world would they ever listen to us? You feel what I'm saying? Like, why would they listen to us? Because it could have been some of us that caused the divide. It could have been maybe even their parents causing the divide. All right, what you're making is nonsense. I used to listen to KRS-One. I don't even know what it is. And then there's this divide, right? So criticism, it's a serious word, man.
But there's a collective here, right? So again, I think we talk about it earlier, and again, I'm so glad I got these two here in terms of complimentary conversation. Understand is that you by yourselves, the entertainment industry can't do it by themselves. Educators can't do it by themselves. But collectively and complementary, we can do amazing things together. And so when I reached out to LA, Sunshine, and talked about, I need to have Chubb, come and speak, I really didn't necessarily mean it in the sense that I just want you to come inspire us. I want you to see that there are people who are like-minded in the things that you do, and the kids and the people probably you can't reach, we can reach, and vice versa. So we don't need you to go and try to save every child, because those who you might not be able to reach, we can reach. And because we're that different in what we do, because we resemble what they resemble, we like what many of them like, there's things that I can say, or Dr. Malik can say, or Thea can say, or Dr. Rowley can say, or Lays can say, or Dane can say, that can touch a child, that can touch their inner core. And so I think as long as we continue to have this conversation in a separatist way, we're not going to be able to do anything about it, because some of the stuff that you talk about is being taken out of school. OSG putting it back into school. So when we talk about music being taken out, we got Lays Elliott and Taylor's Media putting music studios and recording studios back in school. When we talk about, the arts coming out of the school, you can actually go to pretty much any school here and realize, well, wait a minute, we do have dance, we do have the arts back in the school. But I think if you're disconnected from education, if you don't know, people don't know that these things are finding its way back, not because they gave it to us, but because we took it and put it back. So just know that what you're talking about, there needs to be a platform where there is a conversation being had by entertainers and educators alike about the same message. Because that is the only way I truly believe that the change that we both yearn for is going to happen. There are young people that look at us with our hats turned backwards, OSG shirt, looking fresh to death.
Can't goes on.
Can't go, exactly. They look at us and say, my principal never looked like that. That's the thing that Dame always said, right? What made OSG special to him, he's never seen principals like this. He don't. And maybe if he did,
got
like
that
you said,
interview.
maybe if, you know, just like you remember that teacher, those teachers that made an impact. Imagine when your principal makes that kind of impact. When the principal, who've actually had these higher degrees of education and a nice car and a dope suit, comes, or you know what, you see him on the weekends, he got the freshest pair of Jordans on and his hat turned back. You now can make a true impact. But I think collectively and complementary is how this happens. It just doesn't happen in isolation. And I think time out for us trying to do it separately like this.
I totally agree. You know what I see here, and Dr. Malik and Fear and all the other incredible can chime in with this. I'm from Brooklyn, right? So I'm coming from out of Brooklyn. I think the Queen she said Newark. I think Dr. Malik was talking about Harlem. You know, Fear, I forgot where you said. No, the Bronx. I think Fear said the Bronx.
I represent the Bronx, but I'm a queen from Queens.
Queen from Queens. And I'm from Brooklyn. But now I live in Atlanta. And I can tell you, in the up-top regions of a New York tri-state area, you guys have this incredible movement going and energy going. I'm down here in the South, red state. Biden might have won, but still a red state here, right, in Georgia, and it's very different. You know, me and Five-Man Baby, I think out of anybody on the radio here, we have done more career days at school and everything, talking more than anybody here. You can go back, you could ask all of them. And it's different here. There are some extreme challenges here with young people as far as education in this red state. And I don't know what everybody else is.
We got a couple guys down in Atlanta.
If you got a name for a 50-year-old, I look mad cool. Even still, I look mad cool.
I've seen with my own eyes the people,
high school,
the level of homeless students here, right? The level of homeless students that are living in hotels with their parents, and there's no breakfast and stuff like that. Teachers are spending their own money to feed them. You know, there's like this, and I love the challenge because we got to find the answers for this together. It isn't a separate thing. And I love what you guys are doing because you're right. I've never seen principals wearing their hats backwards. I mean, I know Dr. Jackson at my school never did that, and, you know, and Mr. Blanquier, I remember all of them. Mr. Blanquier, I mean, let me tell you, Bronx High School of Science, that long train, gonna flip around and go back to X-Clan and you know, knowledge of self vibe. Is it going to be something totally different now? I have no idea. And with the pandemic and all the stresses that brought upon this situation.
But Chuck, there's a lot more similarities than differences when we talk about up here and down there. At the end of the day, as an educator and a leader, we are putting every effort to make sure to push through some of the barriers that are laid before us here in New York or up in Newark, New Jersey, as you guys are doing down there. It's a slightly different obstacle, but it's still an obstacle nonetheless. And the way you combat that is through leadership. And the conversations that we have, whether it's here or whether it's in Atlanta, whether it's in Compton, is about being a fearless leader, being able to say, listen, I understand that. I understand there's going to be those obstacles and challenges, but that can't stop us. Our children's future depend on us pushing through all of that. And so I think when we connect to our sisters and our brothers in Atlanta or in South Carolina or, you know, in Utah or all the way over in Cali, the conversation is still the same. Our babies need us. Our babies need us to decide that we're not going to bow to whatever establishment that tells us that we can't achieve. And so that's been very important here in terms of what it is
would you
that's
rather
going
do it
on in
tomorrow?
Atlanta being a red state or up here being blue state really and truly doesn't
I don't
matter
feel
at
like
this
I'm gonna wait
point
10 minutes.
because
This is what I said.
the expectation that I have
Yeah, they can.
for principals in Atlanta is no different than the ones that I have for principals here in New York, which is children first. No matter what it takes, children first. You have to go through a lot to get to, and that's why I say, as you share with us your story and your journey, I think people hear about the legendary Chubb Rock. We see the records that still, is pumping and partying all across the world right now. But many of us don't realize that you had to break through as well. I remember hearing you talk about when you met Big Daddy Kane, and Big Daddy Kane talked about how he was such a fan of yours, and you like, who, me? Like, you know who I am? And then remember you said, he turned to Bismarck and said to Bismarck, come here. Or talk to Mr. C. Whose songs do I bump the most? And he told him Chubb Rock. So I think what you got to be able to remind us of is that this is the Chubb Rock we see, but this is not the Chubb Rock that started out kind of pushing through the obstacles and the challenges and for family. My father was from Jamaica, my mother from Belize. I mean, you understand what that is. Like, you talk about true poverty and separation. You go down to Kingston, Jamaica, you go down to parts of Belize, and you see what we're talking about. But look at what they pushed through to get to where we at. So I think I'm one who is in a space where I am going to continue to push the narrative that challenge is a part of the game. That's part of it. Pushback is part of the game. All we got to do is just simply say to ourselves, it's either us or somebody else. I can't trust that somebody else is going to lead the kids the way I'm going to lead the kids, the way the principal's going to lead the kids. So you know what? While we're here, we're going to do it. And so with brothers like you and with Dane and other people who really genuinely have passion for these communities, we can do it collectively. But again, as long as we keep fighting this fight separately, we're actually going to miss the mark each and every time.
I totally agree. And but you got people like with names like Dr. Action involved here. So I mean, you're gonna have no choice but to win. But I totally agree, man. I totally agree. I applaud what you guys are doing, obviously on an everyday basis. And the new school system as well. It started already in the South, and I guess you guys are going to be starting in another week or two. I guess after Labor Day weekend or something like that, if memory serves. And man, what you guys are doing is incredible. I want to be part of whatever you guys are doing. I like to just tuck me in the corner somewhere and allow me to navigate through somehow and learn from you all, and because it can't be easy, and nothing worth it is going to be easy. So,
smart.
Yeah, I'm down.
No doubt. If my man Dane Dash could put that thing down real quick and come back up there.
I ain't sorry.
So Dane, Chubb, Dane has been rocking with us hard for the past year. Like he's been with us since the early parts of this. And this logo that you see in terms of OSG, Dane helped design it. Well, Dane designed it. And you're talking about a guy, you go on his Instagram, then every day it's about OSG. And so the passion that he has for this work we're doing is important. And I think, there's not many people who don't quite understand that Dane Dash. They hear the Dane Dashes in media, but we know a different Dane Dash. And so, it's a lot to be said when a guy like Dane is able to rock with us as hard as he does. And then when you come aboard now, you could just see he honors the work that you've done and the person that you are. So collectively, we can do some dope stuff. So, Dame, I'm gonna let you have the last word with Chubb before we let him get up out of here.
Well, Chubb, not many people when I am around am I like humbled by their intelligence. Just because you've had similar experience and probably not more, but you're still eloquent with the things you say, and your perspective and your narrative is not one of that is programmed. Hey, can you stop that for a second? What's up? And, you know, again, even though, you get that? Even though someone might not understand how, like, ill and dope it was for me to meet you and to be like, wow, you're a hip-hop legend. I still recite your lyrics. I know all your lyrics as a fan. And then for you to spit, oh, yeah, you know, I make lenses and understanding, you know, you built anamorphic lenses and how worldly and scholarly you are. And, you know, the fact that you're here and I'm seeing the respect that these principals have, it's equal to the respect that I have. And I'm not going to say the principals are disrespectful, but they're not an easy crowd if you're not the real deal, you know? I'm telling you, it's like, you know, these guys are funny like they're your friends on the street. When it comes to, you know, they can cut, you know, like I said, I go to the schools, they're battling sneakers, dancing, they do everything. And the reason why I think that I've been spending so much time promoting it is because of the narrative. You know, I know how important it is for us as a culture to see how cool you can look, helping and being smart and intelligent. And, you know, there was something that you said that was exactly right, but I just forgot what it was. I'm gonna bring it back up. But you being a part of it in hip hop and the way that I want to promote OSG, having you a part of it, you know, you're like one of the principles of hip hop to me. You know what I'm saying? And again, they never showcase the intellectual part of us. They never showcase us helping us, you know, and how good that looks. And I just feel like it's necessary. And I feel lucky. Or what you said was that we need to be around these principles because they can teach us stuff. I can honestly tell you that every single time that I've gotten on a Zoom, I've learned a lot. They've helped me be a better father, helped me be a better man, helped me be a better representation of the people that don't know the real me. You know, they've made me cooler. They made me age cool as well, you know, and they make me feel like I'm doing something. You know what I mean? Like I'm not just talking. They're really about that action just like I am. And also the ability to accept constructive criticism on the chin because they're going to give it. I love it all. And also being around a bunch of black people that actually celebrate when the other wins, like as if they won. It's something I've never seen before. Like when you brought up the crab in the barrel thing, there's no crab in this barrel. And I've never seen anything like that. I've never seen anything like that. So it was almost like, you know, I believe in evolution of souls and soul clusters. It's like you found the people that are like-minded finally, that can keep up with you mentally, that want to change and that want to fight and that are prepared to do anything. So even when the pandemic just started, they were like helmeted up, secondary disease, all type of stuff, and we're like, yo, we going out to see the kids. And I'd be like, don't go. And they were like, yo, we don't even know nothing else but that. They don't know nothing else but these kids. My biggest fight is to make them actually dream about their own selves. You know, it's a very selfless crew. So you being a part of it, you know, I'm speechless. When they were like, Chubb, I was like, Chubb, right? That's how everybody acts. And you're right. If they don't know you, they should. You know? And that's really what this platform is for. The ones that don't get celebrated that should. And it's intentional that we don't get celebrated a certain way. That's why we have our own platform to celebrate ourselves. And I want to say one thing that, you know, I just loved it. When I went to Principal Rod School, a dude came up that wasn't from our culture that looked like he might be the principal. And it ain't no disrespect. But the other people with me probably thought he was the principal. He was like, yo, that's my assistant. That was a different narrative. He had the baseball hat on. He had the dunks on, the jacket matching. It was like, he looked like he had a pack. But you know what I'm saying? He was the plug. So I'm proud to be a part of this team. And it's helped evolve me spiritually in a lot of ways. And my everything. So if you in the family, welcome. But either way, you the family, you know? So I appreciate even being able to talk to you, bro.
You know what's interesting? It doesn't shock me that Dame is part of this family. Because he always when I would see him do interviews, and he would say, "Why are you working? And why aren't you owning this? Or why are you not doing this? And why are you not doing that?" And he would tell, these people, whether they were listening or not, about business. To me, that's selfless, because he didn't have to. Most big businessmen don't tell their theory. Right? What you seen in Godfather? Never let somebody out the family know what you're thinking. That kind of vibe. But he was always willing to share it with you. Like, why are you doing this? You got structural engineers, you got civil engineers, you got mechanical engineers, all trying to figure out how did some colored people in the desert build the pyramids, right? They're still trying to figure that out to this day. And that's how I look at Damon Dash, because I'm sure most people are figuring out, how did you build Rockefeller, actually? Because they still haven't been able to build it. To this day, they still haven't been able to build it. And that's how I look at him. He doesn't know that's the kind of respect I have for him and love I have for him.
I appreciate
but I had
that.
to at least say it before I got off the joint, right? Because we know why Henry Ford was successful. George Washington Carver helped, right? Told him how he can build the cars quicker and the plants and everything else, right? The botanist taught him. But no one knows how the Egyptians did. Just like no one knows how he created Rockefeller. So for him to be here, because you guys are all creating little Rockefellers at your various schools.
He gets it.
So it doesn't shock me that he's here, right? He's like this brilliant guy that I don't think he knows exactly how brilliant he is. But I appreciate all of you. I appreciate my boy Laz, who I've been seeing in I don't know how many years now. To see him, I'm glad everyone is well during the pandemic. And whatever you need me for, and I would love to be around, and I would love to bother you guys on a consistent basis. And I just appreciate, you guys allowing me to come in, So
Thank
that
you,
is all the principles.
Thank you, Chuck.
I appreciate it.
Good seeing you, legend.
I appreciate everybody wearing that hip-hop gear, too, because I only own 2 shirts and 3 pants, so I need some kind of OSG shirt and a 3X.
We got you, brother. We got you, Chuck. Thank you so much.
And big shout out for Lays for always curating the illest. He's the illest right now, Lays. Don't get all sensitive. I just wanted you to feel good about that, but you did it. There's your props, Lays. There's your props.
So LA sunshine, but let me just say, Chubb gets it. I didn't know you went to science. I always thought you went to Wingate. I went to tech, so we kind of understand each other. But yeah, definitely. This is definitely a good thing. And down in Atlanta, there's a way you can do it. We have resources in Atlanta. We can plug Chubb into Atlanta. We can really make this work. I mean, this is another situation. We're extending our family, and we're putting in powerful pieces to this board. And I believe Chubb is a very powerful piece to this coalition. So please, this is crazy. I think it's going to be amazing.
That's Professor Chubb right there. That's the professor.
Absolutely. So Chubb, man, again, I want to thank you so much for blessing us with 2 hours of your time and all the knowledge that you dropped on us and with us. And I have your number. We're most certainly going to stay in touch. I most certainly want to help all your efforts in trying to change the narrative. And, I got a crew of people behind me that's going to make sure that it happens. But, once again, thank you for what you've done for us. Thank you for changing our lives, because you allowed it to be fun, to be cool, to dance and have a good time. And so,
feel free to share my number with everyone else. Definitely.
Absolutely, brother. And so, again, thank you so much, Chubb, man. And, as I thought to myself, sometimes you just got to let things flow the way it flows. But I think what we can all take away as leaders is that we're going to have to be fearless, and we're going to have to be persistent. Because when I think back to what you said 30 years ago as it relates to the NCAA, I don't care what anybody says. I know you had a role to play in all that, whether or not you got your credit for it or not. So I just say that things that we're doing right now, it is our expectation that in 20, 30 years from now, we will see the fruits of the work and the fruits of our labor as well. So thank you again so much, Chubb. Thank you again.
Appreciate everybody here.
Off topic, how my man Hot Day doing? I haven't seen him in a lot of years, man. I haven't seen him since the quarters days, man. How's he doing, man?
He's good, man. He's really, really good. He's,